Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be joined by fellow champions of freedom. We have gathered here this afternoon, hastily I might add, but I'm delighted that we could be joined by our United States Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, our Attorney General Tish James, and our Majority Leader Andre Stewart Cousins, as well as advocates, champions from Planned Parenthood, Kristen Dart from Planned Parenthood Empire State Acts, and also a number of other members of my administration. My question is this: when will this stop? Women across this nation are sick and tired of being treated as though we have no rights. Started with Dobbs, not even a year ago, when they wiped out all the gains that women had fought for, my mother's generation fought for, and that my generation and my daughter's generation perhaps took for granted, the right to have a legal abortion in the United States of America. With the Dobbs decision, it's hard to imagine it could get much worse. But what we saw this week was a very dark week in the history of our nation, in the history of women across this country. So I would say this, from the extremist MAGA judge in Texas, who thinks he knows more about science and facts and research than the entire thousands of workers at the FDA, to last night, in the dead of night, under the cover of darkness, with the stroke of a pen, what the governor of Florida did was basically reduce women to having no rights at all. Because the right to an abortion is a fundamental right. And now, for them to say an abortion is only legal up to 6 weeks, well, I can speak about this because as a mother, as a pregnant mother, I didn't even know I was expecting the first 3 months. So 6 weeks is just absurd, an absurd standard to have imposed on women. And Florida was one of the few places in the South where women in search of an abortion could find a safe harbor. That harbor has been shut down. So, we're sick and tired of men telling us what to do. These anti-abortion extremists all across the nation are energized. They're empowered. They think the narrative and the law is now on their side. It may be our bodies, but they say it's their choice. Here in New York, as the governor of the state that is the birthplace of the women's rights movement, we have a special responsibility conferred on all of us as leaders to continue to fight for these rights and do anything in our power to give hope to women across the nation who are now oppressed. We're demanding with one united voice and saying we will always remain a sanctuary for women's rights, that abortion will remain safe, accessible, and legal, and ensure that we'll focus on our providers as well. In the aftermath of the Dobbs decision last June, we allocated $35 million, knowing that New York would become a safe haven, that people from other states would come in search of their legal rights in our state. We also mandated insurance companies doing business in New York cover abortion. And I signed a package of bills supported by our legislature that protected providers and patients. But I will say this: all these latest attempts to tear down our resolve and to wear us down into submission, that will never happen. We are emboldened. We are fighting back. And I want women across this country to know we'll be there to support you, whatever we can do. And even when it comes to what the judge in Texas did, questioning the FDA's approval of an abortion medication that was used and safe for 23 years, we in the state of New York will make sure that this is available for the women of our state in case that decision stands. We'll also, if that decision stands, allocate an additional $20 million because what will happen is if this medication is taken off the shelves and no longer available for providers to give to patients, there will be more procedures as opposed to the option of having a medication abortion. More procedures will cost more money. More people will be coming to New York. So we're proposing that if that ban stands, we'll allocate another $20 million in addition to stockpiling the medication abortion. We're also going to require, we're working with the legislature, and again, I'm grateful to have Andre Stewart-Cousins here, our leader, and Senator Webb, who's a champion as well, fighting in the Senate, as well as Assembly Member Pat Fahey. I thank them for joining us today. We're working with the legislature to require private insurance to cover medication abortion when it's prescribed off-label. And we refuse to go backwards. Wherever they turn, whatever stroke of a pen, where they try to wipe out women's rights, we'll be there to counter. We'll be there to stand strong. Because we know what real American values are. People love to talk about American values. They're about freedom. Freedom means a lot of things to a lot of people, but I'll tell you what it means as a woman. It's the freedom to decide what you want to do with your own body. When, if you choose to have a family, that will occur. These are personal decisions between a woman and her doctor, and we are sick and tired of men, whether they're on the Supreme Court, a judge in Texas, or a governor of another state, taking away these rights. American values are freedom, autonomy, and equality. And I can't think of another instance in American history where men have been singled out, denied any kind of their rights. But somehow it continues to happen to women. But we refuse to go backwards. As I mentioned, this is New York, the birthplace of the women's rights movement, the place where the Statue of Liberty stands tall in our harbor. We will be that beacon of hope, that guiding light to bring others to our state when necessary, but let the women of this state know, as long as I'm the governor of the state of New York, your rights are protected here. We will never stop fighting for what's right. We'll always be that place to come. We have so many outstanding partners in this fight because it's taken on so many faces in the courts, in legislatures, and on our shelves of medication. One of our greatest champions is Kirsten Gillibrand, our senator in Washington. She is out there leading this charge at the federal level because she knows they will not stop until there is a national ban on abortion. So we're grateful to have her as a New Yorker and a champion in defense of women's freedoms. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand.
Well, I want to thank Governor Hochul for her extraordinary and strong leadership. Her vision for how she can protect the freedoms of women across this country is inspiring and hopeful for so many. So thank you, Governor, for your leadership. Reproductive freedom has been under attack intensely since Roe v. Wade was overturned. The Dobbs decision didn't just make it impossible for women to get reproductive care. The Dobbs decision denied women the right to privacy. 22 states have followed that court's ruling, denying women reproductive freedom, and this Texas decision goes the next step, further defining what the denial of right to privacy looks like. It means no right to privacy in the mail. Imagine what that would mean to you. Imagine that you, any person in this country, has no right to privacy in the mail. The government can read your mail. The government can stop your mail. The government can do whatever they want with your private information. This is an outrage. This decision is not going to stop here. The next type of medicine they will deny, why wouldn't they deny your reproductive care for birth control? Why wouldn't they deny the ability to have vaccines? If any judge And this Texas judge in particular can decide based on his or her view of the world what's right for someone's body, what's right for their medical care. There's no stopping what this line of jurisprudence could cause, the harm it could cause all across this nation for patients. Make no mistake, this is an all-out assault on women's reproductive freedom, our civil rights, our civil liberties, and our right to privacy. Many colleagues across this country, both our state colleagues and our federal colleagues, are fighting back. I have just signed on to an amicus brief signed by 50 other senators. This amicus brief is going to give voice to women and families across America that we will not stand for the eradication of our right to freedom and our right to privacy. Women have a right to reproductive care, life-saving care, and we are going to fight this in every court and in every venue that we can find, because American women and their families deserve freedom and privacy.
Thank you, Senator. At this point, I'd like to welcome the Majority Leader of the United States, or the United States, I think that'd be Chuck Schumer. Call up the Majority Leader of the New York State Senate, Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
Thank you so much, Governor. And it is, again, every time I'm here talking about this issue, especially in this, the 50th anniversary of Roe, and realizing that instead of actually celebrating the rights of women in this country, we are lamenting the idea that we, as Senator Gillibrand so eloquently said, are being denied right after right after right. And as our governor said, New York is not that place. We've been very, very clear. At the beginning, even pre-Roe v. Wade, New York was a leader. In 1970, we led. And I am very happy to be in a state, especially since everyone seems to be on a national level, and think that's what the Dobbs decision was supposed to be, something that said, oh, states' rights, states' rights. Who would have thought that we would have actually been celebrating states' rights? But the reality is that in this state, with this leadership, with these allies on every level of government, with my colleagues in the Assembly, under the enlightened leadership of male Speaker Hasty, thank you so much for being here, Assemblywoman Vahey. You could tell him I shouted him out. And of course, Senator Webb is here because we actually have a Women's Issues Committee that she heads up. But the reality is that we have watched our fight to have our rights, and we are watching them being eroded. But the fact that we are able to remember how we fought to achieve them, I hope empowers us and emboldens us in ways like never before to not let us slip backwards. Because left unchecked, they believe that they have the momentum. They do not. When I was a pregnant teenager in 1970 in New York, so he said, I never knew who allowed for the right to abortion. Who would have thought, fast forward, that I would be standing in a position to make policy with, yes, the first female governor, and yes, legislature that is between 30 and 50% female to fight back. We can do this. We can be a beacon. We can be champions. We could show people how it's done. And we will continue to work with allies who understand that we just don't lose a little bit of freedom. We lose it all on every level if we sit quietly by and watch it go away. This is not the place. New York is not that place. And why is it not that place? Because not only do we have fighting U.S. senators and fighting governors and fighting legislators, we also have an attorney general that wakes up every morning to do the fighting on behalf of New Yorkers. When we send our legislation there, we know we have a defender and a champion. And I'd like to introduce Attorney General Letitia James.
The decision to have an abortion is deeply personal and complex, I know. And no man, whether they sit in a courtroom or they sit in a legislative building, should substitute their judgment, their ideology, their religious beliefs over that of individuals who have engaged in research and facts and science and experience. Margaret Sanger once said that no woman can call herself free who does not control her own body. No woman can call herself free until she can choose whether she will or will not be a mother. We stand here today because we are witnessing men strip away that right. They are also stripping away the right to vote, the right to love whoever we want, and the right to bear children. And so, as Eleanor Roosevelt once said, it's up to the women. It's up to the women to march. It's up to the women to vote. It's up to the women to raise their voices in opposition to individuals who seek to take away our autonomy, our agency, our authority, our control. Thank God we have a governor who just happens to be a woman, but a woman who has led this state, and a woman who recognizes a woman's right to choose and privacy rights, and who actually believes in protecting all of the rights that I just outlined. The right to make our own choices over our own bodies. And I want to make clear that abortion is still legal in the state of New York. And as long as we have Governor Hochul, it will remain legal. And as long as I am the Attorney General, I will use the law both as a sword and as a shield against any individual who seeks to strip away that basic right, because an abortion is health care, and it's critical, and it will disproportionately affect low-income women and women of color. So no ban will ban abortions. It will ban safe abortions. That's what it will do, because individuals with means will travel to other states, and unfortunately, low-income women and women of color will put their lives at risk. And that's why we stand together. We believe that ensuring all residents are safe and that all of them have access to health care. But once again, we find ourselves at the whim of individuals who put politics over the lives of individuals. This was never a debate about science, because more than 20 years of medical research has proven that medication abortion is safe and effective. From day one, this has been a politicized effort to control our bodies, to undermine reproductive health care, and chip away at our rights. But we're tough, and we're not going away. And we're going to stand together arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder. And we're going to stand up to those individuals who would treat us like second-class citizens. And that's why, as the Attorney General, we have filed briefs in support of the FDA. We have joined with the Department of Justice seeking an emergency stay before the United States Supreme Court. And that's why we are confident and hopeful that here in the state of New York and all across this country, women who unfortunately do not have access to abortion, our borders are open. Our doors are open, our hospitals are open, our clinics are open, and we are here to serve you because we are led by women who understand what you're going through and who will be there for you each and every time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Attorney General, and all of their speakers here today. You referenced the right to vote, the need to vote. I want to remind everyone, I'll do it many more times, we all are, between now and the next election in 2024 election. The right to an abortion will also be on the ballot in the state of New York. The legislature has passed a constitutional amendment called the Equality Amendment, but basically an ERA-type amendment that'll actually ensure not just the right to an abortion, but the right to have access to reproductive health care in all of its shapes and forms. So I think that's something we should start letting people know now, that never take anything for granted, and that'll be a motivating factor to get people out to vote in 2024. With that, we'll take any questions, Hazel?
I can ask one. I didn't have my hand raised, but I'll ask one. So the lawsuit points to a 2019 citizen petition, and I'm just going to read off this for a little bit, challenging the approval of mifepristone by the American College of Pediatricians. In part, it asks the FDA to limit mifepristone's use to 49 days gestation, require the drug be administered under doctoral supervision, and required reporting of certain adverse side effects to the FDA. So why isn't that something that can be done? Because it seems like under these requirements, that's when mifepristone would be approved by FDA, correct?
Mifepristone has been available by the FDA for 23 years. It was a federal judge that made one decision that has an impact over most of the nation. And fortunately, there's a stay on that right now, so that drug is still available. But when this gets to the Supreme Court,
But aren't they in essence saying just go back to the drawing board and follow the regulations? Like FDA needs to follow certain regulations?
no, they could have, they were not required to basically ban it for other states, for the states that are covered, other than the 17 states that were covered by the Washington state decision. Do you have anything on that?
No, just, listen, so you're citing the plaintiff's position, and our position is that of the FDA and all of the plaintiff states, in that the approval process that you cite poses restrictions to individuals getting mifepristone. And that's why we oppose that application, and that's why New York State has filed a brief, an amicus brief, in support of FDA's position, because this drug was approved over 23 years ago. 23 years ago, and we cannot reopen that process.
So I just have kind of a money question. You mentioned the $20 million. Last year after Dobbs, you directed the Department of Health to create a $35 million fund to expand access to abortion here. Just wondering, as we look towards the new state budget, obviously, is that something that you want to repeat, or is the $20 million kind of in place of that?
No, the $35 million will be repeated, because this was to help our providers all across the state, and I'm from Western New York. I can't tell you how many people have come from places like Ohio and other states in search of an abortion, and that has put tremendous pressure on our New York State providers. So we wanted to allow them to hire more people, expand their facilities, so the women of our state can also be served as well. The $20 million is contingent on this decision in Texas in the event that this becomes the law of the land, and basically taking away the ability to have at least mifepristone as far as the more effective option for people to use. We think that that could lead to more people wanting the abortion procedure, which is obviously more time-consuming. It puts pressure on already an overburdened healthcare system in the state of New York. So we wanted to let providers know in that event, we're going to have a trigger to release $20 million.
And do you need that 35 in the budget, or can you just direct the DOH?
Well, that we can put in the budget. That at the time was money that was under the purview of the Commissioner of Health, and so now this can be a budgetary item.
Is there concern that by not joining the Washington case, that New Yorkers could lose access to that drug?
No, because although New York did not join the Washington case, we were focused on the Texas case, and there was a question of fact with respect to the Washington case. Because of the stay, it applies obviously to New York, and as I mentioned earlier, we filed an amicus brief in support of the FDA in the Fifth Circuit.
I have a couple more.
We'd love to know about the Senate this year again passed the reproductive freedom equity bill that would create a $50 million fund to expand abortion access. I was curious if that was something that you support or put in the budget. And also I wanted to know, we earlier in the week had a discussion with the Senate Majority Leader about a potential constitutional amendment to eliminate the Judicial Nominating Commission. I was just curious why you want to do that, and that commission helps keep transparency in the process and make sure that the list of candidates and the vacancy in the Court of Appeals is the highest or the best candidates that can be.
Well, certainly the Majority Leader can speak to her position on that, but it's something that I'm focused on right now is making sure that my exceptional nominees get through the process from which they came. They were nominated by a commission that evaluated qualifications, and we're in the process of having their hearings next week, and hopefully, pending the outcome, a speedy resolution in the legislature. What was the first question again?
Sure. If I can follow up on that, and I'll ask the other one too if I can. But so do you want to eliminate that commission?
I've not had conversations. We had a casual conversation, but it's something, I'm focused right now on dealing with what's right before me, which is making sure that we get a chief judge and fill that vacancy as soon as possible, because we've gone so many months, coming up on a year, of not having the full court in place.
The first one was about the reproductive freedom equity act. It was $50 million, and for that fund, those grants that the Department of Health would do. Is that something that would be in the budget?
I've already talked about the $35 million plus a possible addition of $20 million. Is that something you want to address?
No,
Okay.
you did.
Yeah, so,
That's the money.
okay, okay.
Any updates on the budget at this point?
Well, in this room a few hours ago, we had a very productive meeting with Leader Stewart Cousins and Speaker Heastie, and we're moving down in a very fruitful way right now. We're making good progress. I know the legislature will be back soon, and we're looking forward to wrap this up at some point, not too far distant future.
All right, thank you so much.
Is housing and bail still the key sticking points in budget talks?
We are working very hard to resolve all key sticking points.
Soon.
You know the answer.
How many more senators?
We don't, there's no way, I don't have any way of knowing.